Remember how much fun you used to have playing in the sandbox as a kid? Yeah, this one is nothing like it. I think the theme this morning has been that things can change really quickly. We came to you about 10, 15 minutes ago, and I was showing you how the snow wasn't sticking to the sidewalk. It was melting. Well, look at it now. With 200,000 miles ahead of them, the 3 astronauts were on their way to the moon. When they got there, they'd need a tool designed by a man in Lenore City. Instagram-worthy murals are all the rage, and one county in East Tennessee is getting in on the trend, and some other additions to make each visit here picture perfect.
Emily DeVoe is scoping out the course, literally running at this moment. And Sue Knoxville, how's it going? You're looking strong.
Thank you. I mean, I'm with a couple pros right here. It's a little wet right now, but should be looking great on Saturday. Here in Gatlinburg, it's still a waiting game. Temperatures are sitting right around 42 degrees. We're still waiting for it to get down to freezing, but we're on the eastern side of this system moving through, so I can imagine we will probably be the last of all the reporter crews out in the field to see any kind of snow. In Knoxville for Give Me a WBIR, I'm Emily DeVoe.
Hump day!
A side of smiles.
Hey, baby!
And a serving of fun.
But it's hump day!
Is why people make a special trip to the McDonald's near Knoxville Center Mall.
Have a good day.
To see Gay Sherelle.
Not everybody can wear green hair.
I know.
Who always works the window in style.
I've been a leprechaun, I've been an angel, I've been Dolly Parton. You know, I just go all out.
Every time a customer comes through, they are expected to see her in something different. Except for on Wednesday. You'll see her in a camel hat every Wednesday.
Hump day, honey.
She'll say that when she walks in. Everybody, it's hump day today.
It's a tradition she started several years ago.
Why, thank you. It's hump day.
And it just sort of stuck.
If I wear a normal hat, they want to know where my hat is. I start the night before and I set everything out, and I get up early in the morning to get ready. You know, you got to put effort into everything.
That go-getter attitude is why her younger coworkers gave her a nickname.
Crazy hat lady?
No, not for the costumes.
Maybe your second nickname.
What's the other nickname?
It's for her demeanor.
Oh, Grandma? Oh, yeah, everybody calls me Grandma.
She teaches them a lot about responsibility, a lot about accountability, and a lot about customer service.
How y'all doing today?
Sherelle's service at the window can sometimes be more like a therapist.
I guess I am, because people tell me, you know, their troubles and everything like that.
With regulars making a special trip just to see her.
Oh, there you are.
She's with them through all the ups and downs of their busy days.
I have gone through births, I've gone through deaths, you know, and they become friends.
And she's had customers come through from going to funerals, to weddings, happy times, sad times, and she just tries to make them feel, you know, it's going to be a good day.
That's always a good thing.
It's why she always comes to work with a smile.
I feel I belong here. I feel it's my purpose.
A purpose to make everyone's day a little better.
Hump day.
In Knoxville.
Bye-bye.
For Live at 5 at 4, I'm Emily DeVoe. Game days in Knoxville are crazy, and if you wait till just an hour before kickoff to figure out how you're getting to the stadium, you're in for a big orange headache. If you were planning on renting a scooter to get to the game, forget about it. The companies in Knoxville will be taking them up on Friday night, and they won't be back out again until Sunday. Of course, you always have the option of taking Uber or Lyft, but this year, there's a catch. You'll need to be dropped off here at the College of Nursing before the game and picked up at Circle Drive and Cumberland Avenue when it's all over. These are the only 2 designated rideshare areas. It's new this year, but what's not new, the Knoxville Area Transit Football Shuttle. For $10, you can purchase one of these round-trip wristbands, and the shuttle will take you to the game from the Civic Coliseum, Jackson Avenue, or Market Square. There's also a $20 shuttle that will take you to and from Farragut High School. But if you want a really cheap option, you could just pay for a $4 day pass and take one of the regular bus routes. They have these passenger playbooks that map out all the stops to the stadium along the route. With all those options, some people will still want to drive themselves, and that's okay. but navigating campus will be hectic. There will be road closures on Philip Fulmer Way, Volunteer Boulevard, and Peyton Manning Pass. Not to mention, there are several streets that will turn into one-way roads going with traffic to the stadium and away from it after the game. No matter how you decide to get to the game on Saturday, I guarantee the vehicle you'll use the most, your own 2 feet. If there's one place,
It's the first place we think of.
almost as synonymous with Oak Ridge as the Manhattan Project,
Big Ed's.
it's Big Ed's Pizza.
We do one thing, and we do it well.
Ed Newsell opened the iconic Oak Ridge restaurant in 1970 after selling his original pizzeria in Huntsville, Alabama.
He ended up in Oak Ridge in 1970 and opened up here because the schools are so good and it's a good community.
A community that knew him best as Big Ed.
He was a big guy, a little over 6 foot, but just very, very broad.
Everybody kind of refers to Big Ed as like a gentle giant.
He would always be at the back bar, hunched over and looking really mean and sour, and little kids would come up and he'd growl at them and they'd just laugh, and the kids loved him.
And boy, do people love his pizza.
I like pepperoni and cheese.
We still use all his original recipes. We just try to keep with the tradition that he kind of started, and I think that people really appreciate that. I think Melissa's gonna get a pizza.
John Harris is the general manager, and the restaurant's still in the family. Melissa Newsell became the owner after her husband David, Big Ed's son, passed away 5 years ago.
Big Ed's has always been a part of my world before I actually became a part of the family. I grew up just up the street and worked just next door, so it's always been part of my life.
Aside from the video quality, it's nearly impossible to tell the difference in this video from 1997 and today. And that's part of the charm of Big Ed's. You know exactly what you're getting when you walk in the door.
When you walk in here, you can kind of feel that it's old. I don't mean that in a bad way. I think that it's, we do things in a traditional way, and so we cut our pizza with scissors. Nobody's done that in years, you know.
And it's that kind of tradition baked into each pizza that makes Big Ed's such a tradition for so many in Oak Ridge. For Live at 5 at 4, I'm Emily DeVoe.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Oh, there was a space race.
Roman Titov of Russia returns to Earth.
We knew what the Soviets were doing. They launched Sputnik before we put a satellite in orbit. There was a panic mode.
The biggest challenge was to escape gravity, and that, as we understood, took the biggest engine ever.
You got 3 guys riding this thing, and you got to make sure it's going to work.
30 seconds and counting.
There are people sleeping on the hoods of cars, in the trunks of cars, on the ground, everywhere. It's just people everywhere.
T-minus 15 seconds.
We knew it was history. We knew it was history in the making.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
As World War II ended,
First, you duck.
And the Cold War
Then
heated up,
you cover.
So did the race to space. The potential to send Americans to the moon attracted thousands of young engineers from around the country, including from the University of Tennessee.
Well, I was born and raised in Tennessee, and I went to Knoxville, educated there at the University of Tennessee, got my engineering degree, and then came to Huntsville. Signed on as a test engineer under the von Braun arrangement.
German scientist Werner von Braun was one of the world's leading rocket scientists and a pioneer in the American race to the moon.
Von Braun had a real talent for working with people and understanding things like that.
His team of German scientists led the efforts at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, nearly 200 miles southwest of Knoxville. It's here they built the Saturn V rocket, the vehicle that would propel astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins to the moon.
The Saturn V is going to be a technological marvel.
It had the most power, and it was the most complex in so many ways. The biggest challenge was to escape gravity. And that, as we understood, took the biggest engine ever.
While engineers in Huntsville tested every aspect of the rocket on the ground, 49 miles away in Tullahoma, Tennessee, scientists tried to figure out what would happen in the vacuum of space.
Well, we're inside the J4 Large Rocket Development Test Facility here at AEDC. We simulate how a rocket propulsion system will perform in a higher atmosphere and also in outer space.
Today, the J4 test cell at Arnold Engineering Development Complex is quiet. But 50 years ago, it hummed with round-the-clock testing of the entire Apollo system.
Testing was very new. I mean, AEDC was basically a teenager, and so we were still learning how to test. A lot of the people who were doing the testing were kind of like myself. They were very young, and so everybody was learning at the same time.
Dr. Bill Baker is the base's test operations technical director, but when he showed up in 1964, he was just a junior engineer.
I was so afraid that the space program was going to be over, but before I got out of school, I went to school year-round. Well, the very first test that I worked on when I was here was basically measuring the dynamic stability of the escape module.
They said that if the rocket were to malfunction, it would be to have the energy equivalency of a small atomic bomb. So you got 3 guys riding this thing, and you got to make sure it's going to work. So an extensive amount of testing had to be done to validate that the engines would operate.
But the end of the decade was quickly approaching. NASA pushed for what's called an all-up approach to speed up the process.
What NASA says is we don't have time for that. What we need to do is we need to test everything at one time. And Apollo 4 in November of 1967 was that test. The entire Saturn V launch vehicle that had never been launched before. And it was flawless. So it really showed them that they were on the right track.
All of a sudden, it just lights a fire under you, literally.
The Apollo 4 mission was unmanned, and so was Apollo 6, but it was riddled with issues.
There were all types of problems. You had pogo in the first stage, which is a vibration basically through the entire vehicle. 2 engines on the second stage had to shut down. And the next launch of the Saturn V would send human beings to the moon. Now that took a lot of bravery.
The crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you.
On Christmas Eve 1968, Apollo 8 sent men around the moon for the first time.
God created the heaven and the earth.
It was hailed as a pivotal win for a space program facing budget woes and public scrutiny.
And God bless all of you on the good earth.
It proved the U.S. was capable of what was considered science fiction a few years earlier.
We were confident of the launch vehicles, we were confident of all the things, but then the one unknown was we were going to land a man on the moon, and that had never been done. So that's where that's where the pucker string gets a little tight.
On the morning of July 16, 1969, thousands of cars lined the roads and beaches near Kennedy Space Center in Florida, hoping to catch a glimpse of history.
There are people sleeping on the hoods of cars, in the trunks of cars, on the ground, everywhere. It's just people everywhere.
At the time, Don Ferguson worked for the Knoxville News Sentinel. He and his family traveled the 704 miles to Cape Canaveral to see the launch in person.
You had to watch out, people sleeping on the ground, in the chaise lounges around the pool, everywhere, just people everywhere. So we commandeered chairs and went to the balcony and had us a good perch from which to view the blast-off.
There's Johnson standing up.
Wilson Horde, another man from East Tennessee who represented Union Carbide in Oak Ridge, was among the thousands in Florida for the launch. But he got a seat in the coveted VIP bleachers alongside celebrities and politicians.
I was busy with a small camera that just made individual shots I was clicking that camera as fast as it would take them.
5, 4, 3.
And when you get in that countdown mode,
1.
you celebrate once they get to orbit.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
There was a loud cheer when it went off.
Shortly thereafter, just seconds, and we felt the balcony shake.
I won't forget, even at my age now, 92.
Oh, you watch everything and you know that here's the culmination of everything you've worked on. You see it happen, and that was a fabulous moment.
I've covered several things. I've had several good interviews over the years. This was by far the most historic thing that I've ever been involved in.
Houston, Apollo 11 entered and gave us a magnificent ride.
With 200,000 miles ahead of them, the 3 astronauts were on their way to the moon. When they got there, they'd need a tool designed by a man in Lenore City.